Welcome back. Today I'm going to show you how to make an Alfredo sauce. And as always, we would love it if you would support our channel, and thank you for spending time with us. Today I'm using bay scallops. They're a lot smaller. They're almost like popcorn, bite size. Sea scallops are a lot bigger, but I will have all the ingredients listed in the description box below. But I start out with just dropping in the spaghetti. I use dry spaghetti and start that. And this whole dish comes together right around the time that the spaghetti is done, just a little bit after. And so I start out with putting half of the Parmesan cheese in the bowl. You're more than welcome to use freshly grated Parmesan. I just learned probably about 30 years ago, to just use the Parmesan cheese that was available to us then in the grocery stores. And so I do that half in there, and then I melt the butter and add the cream and then get that all mixed in. And I use a whisk to mix everything in to make it sure it's all emulsified and one. And I'm doubling my recipe, and so you'll see me using 2 sticks of butter and 2 pints of cream, but that's why. And so everything's just doubled here. And so I'm just going to take a little bit of time to make sure that all of that butter and cream all come together and just whisk that around. And I've got my heat at about a medium-low heat because we don't want to scorch the cream or burn the butter. And so we just want to bring everything together. And then we'll bring in our seasonings. But this is super simple. I add more seasonings, and so this is technically more than 3 ingredients, but really an Alfredo is butter, cream, and Parmesan. But I like to add some seasonings to it, and I just eyeball it and do it according to our taste. But I add black pepper, ground nutmeg, and just a dash of that, and then also some ground red pepper. And that just kind of gives it a nice little flavor. It doesn't bring it too much heat or make it spicy at all. It just brings out the flavor of everything else. And then I add a little bit of salt to it. Now, our cheese is going to add quite a bit of salt flavor. And then, of course, I'm going to be seasoning my scallops as well. And so we'll get seasonings from all in there. But feel free to just continue to season as you wish. And so this has been heating. I turned up the heat to about medium, and it's looking like it's getting to the point where I want it, and I'm just going to let it sit. Now, before I drain off the pasta, I reserve some pasta liquid, some cooking liquid, just in case I need to thin out my pasta sauce, which you'll see me do later, so it's really important that I keep that. And I just reserve about 2 cups just in case. I never use that much, but it's just kind of my comfort zone. So I make sure, and I cook my pasta till al dente, where it's just, there's a little bit of bite to it because I'm going to continue and add the sauce and those things in it. So this is looking good. It's starting to be able to coat the spoon like that. And so that's how I know that everything's come together and it's not separated anymore. And then we'll start the scallop cooking process by melting about a tablespoon of butter and a couple teaspoons of olive oil. Now this one was a light olive oil, and then you want to make sure that your scallops or any seafood is dry. You want to make sure all of that moisture is soaked out, because through the cooking, it's going to release more moisture too. And so I've got these cooking on high just to try to cook them up, and that's in the butter and olive oil. And then I just add some garlic salt and some pepper. And then I'm also going to add some ground garlic powder as well. And then we get that all mixed up, and just as it's cooking. And sea scallops and bay scallops, they don't take a long time to cook, but these little scallops, they're of course quicker, and so you'll want to make sure that you don't overcook them. I want to say all in total, I cooked them probably maybe 5 minutes at most. But right here, I was starting to get a little bit too much liquid, and so I just scooped out some of that liquid just so we could get it cooking a little bit better and faster. And then I was looking through my spices, and I actually found a garlic bread seasoning that we had, and I just wanted to add a little bit more seasoning and flavor, and so we added that in there too. just to give it the scallops a little bit more flavor. And then you'll just want to cook those just until they're done. You can taste them. You can pretty much look and tell because they become opaque or less clear. And so you'll pretty much know. And so now it comes to the point where we're going to assemble the sauce. This whole thing comes together so fast. So I add my sauce, my cream and my butter and seasonings to that half of the Parmesan cheese. And I just add it to the bowl. And then in goes the scallops. Make sure you get all of that seasoning in there. And if you don't use any seafood, that's totally fine. You just want to make sure that you season your sauce well enough. And then I'm going to add my pasta in. And so down in my bowl, I've got the Parmesan on the bottom, and then the Alfredo sauce, and then the pasta on top, the scallops and pasta. And now I'm just going to start mixing it. And you're going to see me kind of mix it a little bit silly right here with some tongs and a fork. But the pasta was a little bit dense at the time just because it had been sitting for a couple minutes, draining. And so it was a little bit hard to stir with my normal spoons or fork and spoon. And so I just used this until I got the liquid running through there a little bit better. And so I just toss everything around, and then I add the other half of the Parmesan cheese to it. And then I'm just going to mix it all up again. And, you know, as the nature of it, we get some big chunks of Parmesan, but I just break those up and then just get it all mixed up again and get it tossed. And so now you'll see me go back to my original spoon and fork and just toss that around. Now feel free to adjust the seasonings to your taste and palate and what your family likes. At the end, I add a little bit of parsley just to make it pretty. That's what Mom used to do. She would, you know, add a little parsley to everything just to kind of fancy it up. Now my grandma, this is her Alfredo recipe, and she didn't used to add parsley. We just had it like this and maybe added a little bit more Parmesan. But you always want to make sure that you taste it before you serve it, just to make sure the seasonings are good. And I use a tasting fork just so I don't put my fork back in it. And then I'm going to add a little bit of cooking liquid. I would say maybe a 1/4 cup or a 1/3, just to get that a little bit more loose, because the sauce was kind of thickening up too much for my liking, because it's going to thicken up more as it sits and on the table and on the plate. And so I like it a little on the thin side just because I know it's going to thicken up. It's not too thin, but it's just a nature of pasta and the sauce. And so we've just added a little bit of dried parsley to the top just to make it pretty. And that is it. It's a super simple recipe that's delicious. It's wonderful for company because it comes together nice and quickly. But this is our seafood Alfredo. And 3 ingredients: the butter, the cream, and the Parmesan. And feel free to use whatever other seasonings you would like. But thank you for watching and spending time with us. And we would love it if you would like our video, comment, and subscribe.